I wasn't gonna address this, because I'm not trying to let nobody trick me off the streets. But I never folded, never told, never will.
Big Meech, who headed up the Black Mafia family after serving nearly 20 years in prison, he is out of prison.
There's a few times in my life where I remember the time and location I was during a national tragedy. I remember where I was on 9/11. I remember where I was when Michael Jackson died. And I remember where I was when I saw 50 Cent posted that Big Meech is a rat. I swear, it was like the trap nigga version of finding out Santa Claus doesn't exist. But take a step in his shoes. Imagine for a second, you're one of the largest drug kingpins in the world. What began as a small-time hustle in the trenches of Detroit in the late 80s became a drug empire, fronting as a legitimate music promotion corporation by the 2000s. It seemed like you were untouchable for over a decade and a half, but then in a matter of hours, everything began crashing down like dominoes.
New big arrests. Atlanta police believe they have just about shut down the so-called Black Mafia family.
The feds, looking to take you off the street, sentence you and your brother to spend the next 30 years for distributing millions of dollars of cocaine into inner cities all over the nation. It seemed like all hope was pretty much lost, but one day, a legendary rapper and TV producer saw the details of your story, bought the rights, and started a show putting money in your pocket. And instead of hiring some random ass jit from around the corner, he casted your son, got him acting lessons, and made your family over $5 million and counting. However, one ill-timed IG post with a certain rapper who puts Molly in bitches champagne and they don't even know it, you know that guy, it's looking like your whole family might just need to come across another source of income because BMF is getting canceled. Man, if you've been following the BMF saga over the last couple of days, you've probably seen 50 Cent throw out some of the most insane trolling attacks towards legendary trap lord Big Meech. While 50 Cent is known to have a scorched earth approach towards his enemies on some 48 laws of power shit, this time it seemed personal. In his random rant against the Flannery family, 50 Cent went full 1090 Jake and aired out Meech's dirty laundry, seemingly calling him a snitch, and sent a personal message asking him if he remembers who Tammy Cohen's is. It was this grand post that opened the floodgates for many who have been pointing out for years that Big Meech has some type of involvement with the feds that resulted in an infamous St. Louis kingpin by the name of Cuffy to get over 27 years in prison for trafficking. Today, we're going to tell that story, the full story, with the paperwork from Cuffy's case included to once and for all understand, was Big Meech a federal informant or just a victim of federal manipulation? Off rip, this story is full of betrayal, shootings, people randomly having affairs with special agents, and damn near black cartel type activity that could be its own TV show. Just not produced by 50 Cent though, you already know. So today, we got to get into the fall of Big Meech and the snitching allegations that caused it right now. But before we do, I need you to like, comment, subscribe. We're on the road to 100k subs. You already know we can run this possibly by this video alone. If y'all tap in, hit that merch in the description at staysafeworld.com. Make sure you hit that notification bell so whenever I post, y'all tune in right away. So let's get into this. Chapter 1, Rise from the Rubble. No cap, the moment I knew this BMF saga was headed straight to waste management, it has to have been when 50 Cent straight up got Old Boy's Welcome Home concert canceled. Bro, like for real, imagine you just got out of prison for decades and you were trying to get back on your feet with a major concert, and Mr. Many Men himself took it upon himself to get that shit shut down hours before it was supposed to start. While 50 Cent has refused to let up and has told the world that he's going to release the full Tammy Cohen story very soon, many believe that this was the start of BMF's collapse. I mean, second collapse really if you count everything that happened before where they all went to jail for decades. In reality, the BMF downfall though starts way before that. Way before the snitching allegations, way before Tammy Cohen's Fed cooperation in 2012, way before Meech or Southwest T even sold their first brick. In fact, we gotta go all the way back to the jump, from the streets of Detroit, to truly understand how one of hip-hop's biggest rap influences is now being exposed as being an informant. So let's get into it right now. Chapter 1, Rise from the Rubble. To even understand how this went down, you have to understand where Demetrius and Terry Flannery come from before anything. When you think of Detroit, Michigan, you probably think of abandoned houses and warehouses, old remnants of automotive industry, and people with a Midwestern grit and hustle. Being from the southwest part of Detroit in the 1980s, there was pretty much no other option but to hustle to get some bread. Detroit has been a forgotten city for decades now. You see, back in the 1950s, the economy exploded after World War II. The average middle class person was able to afford afford a car for the first time, and Detroit was where all the cars were getting made, so people were migrating there for jobs, and Detroit was really having people get a piece of the American dream. At that point, it was the wealthiest city in the world, with pretty much everyone employed by the car manufacturer. Things would be pretty lit for a decade, with seemingly endless jobs popping up. However, in the mid to late 60s, automotive workers began striking for better rights, and instead of giving it to them, manufacturers began moving all their factories overseas to save money. All the jobs that built the city were pretty much all gone by the 70s and gave way to a once beautiful city looking like an entire war zone. Some parts of Detroit still be looking like that today. In the midst of the rubble, two brothers were born in the southwest Detroit area of Boynton. Like I said, they had little options but to come up with a bag somehow. As kids, Meech was always known as a professional flexer, you know, someone who's very outspoken with what they have, what they say, how they dress, and the jewelry they wear. On the other hand, Southwest T was more of a quiet, reserved, and careful crafted thinker. They started out hustling weed, which went well for them, and they were able to make bills and live, you know. But everything started to change in 1984. Meech had a close friend named Kilo, who introduced the pair to his uncle, none other than E.D. Boyd, an infamous kingpin known for distributing major weight from Miami to the Detroit area. This dude Boyd was the real deal, because even to this day, he's still alive and free to tell his story, which shows he knew what he was doing. Boyd remembers that Meech's drive and determination to get rich stuck out, so they soon hit it off and started an operation that would change the face of Detroit's drug game for generations. They started getting major money by selling 50 bags, an affordable price, which led to an influx of constant customers. He would then get his brother and best friend to help with this operation, and they became infamous throughout the city as the 50 Boys, named after the bag deals that they were selling. ED saw early on that as Meech was getting more and more money, he liked to flex his bread in chains and watches and cars, which could easily draw the wrong type of attention. He decided to start the infamous tradition of having dinner all together once a week so he would give advice to the up-and-coming entrepreneurs. Things were cool at the beginning, but then a local feud with rival Kingpin Leighton Simon almost ended the entire operation several times. The craziest of which, Big Meech getting shot 12 times in retaliation for Leighton Simon's brother Elvis getting shot in a shootout prior. Meech was somehow able to survive and recover, and when he did, the 50 Boys knew it was time to get out of the city. This was really the beginning of the end, because they would begin to grow exponentially, and with that, so did their target on the radar. So we got to get into how it went downhill in the next chapter, chapter 2, major distribution, because it will all make sense. This is where it starts to go wrong. Change of scenery for the 50 Boys turned into a full rebranding. They dropped their original name and began going by BMF, or Black Mafia Family, as an homage to the old school Italian gangsters. They dropped the petty street beef and decided to branch out to as many cities as possible. They really set up shop like a McDonald's franchise, no cap at all. Big Meech would relocate to Atlanta since the highways in the city were the gateway to the rest of the country, while Southwest T will move to LA to look for a Mexican connect out that way. He would eventually get a connection in a plug named Wayne Jordan, and was able to get it on the road straight to his brother in Atlanta. This operation pretty much made them filthy rich, as they were able to expand in so many cities and once again have the lowest prices because they had a fire connect straight from the source. However, this was the beginning of the end and would actually play a role in everything that Meech got going on today. You see, ATL was just blowing up as a hip-hop scene, and Meech was taking full advantage of it, completely decked out in chains, nice clothes, but was looking like a real rapper even though he didn't make music. He would pull up to clubs every night and flex so he could network with smaller plugs and eventually take control of the entire supply of Atlanta. Remember how we talked about how Meech was super flamboyant and loud and T was the opposite? This was the first sign of things going wrong. T did not want to stand out because he knew when people say the money trail, it would only cause more problems. At this time though, Meech would realize he would need to make a legit business to try to wash all this drug cash, so he took the example of Young Jeezy and tried to make a rap label. This was obviously an L and basically split the brothers apart, as T saying he needed to move smarter and wanted no parts in what he was doing. That caused his brother to not have any guidance and just all around crash out. Bro hired a data analyst who wasn't a criminal to help build his business further. At the same time, had parties in the mansion where the drugs were on some hot shit. Bro even murked one of Diddy's bodyguards in self-defense.
I saw my brother's picture on the big screen,
which he was somehow able to beat, but it was this incident that resulted in the feds looking more into his lifestyle. They saw that his record business was not making any money to pay for all the mansions and houses and knew immediately that something was up. They then wiretapped Southwest T's phone for months, trying to understand the coded speech that they would use to communicate behind the scenes. At the same time, they intercepted a runner in Missouri and let him call Southwest T from a jail phone once they arrested him, which was a crucial mistake that got him caught red-handed. They were able to arrest the data analyst who was also there and left behind after a party got raided, and he testified against everyone in BMF, and both brothers were sentenced to 30 years in prison. They were both able to get out relatively early after only 2 decades. Southwest T had lesser charges, so it made sense for him to go out first. However, people would grow suspicious of Big Meech as his 30-year sentence only lasted about 17 years. When he first came out, rumors began spreading that basically pinpointed him as an informant, which we will get into in the final chapter, the finale. On October 18th, 2024, Big Meech was released from prison after serving since 2008. It seemed as right as he was released, there was a viral video that began going around social media from the daughter of St. Louis drug kingpin named Dion Cuffy Gatling, stating that Big Meech had cooperated in his takedown that resulted in him getting prison time. This information was actually not new, and there were records of people talking about paperwork that was discovered over 4 years ago, seemingly implicating him. The story of how this all happened is pretty wild and somehow involves a Caucasian lady who was sleeping with a federal agent. So let's try to break this down so y'all can understand. Cuffy's daughter would go into detail saying that Cuffy was brought down by someone who Big Meech had sent and told about the deal. That person being whoever he gave his life rights to. Rewind a couple years before, while Big Meech was posted behind those concrete walls, he knew his life story had enough drama in it to sell a movie or a book. He was looking at lucrative opportunities to sell his life as a script, so he got the help of a close friend named Tammy Cohen's to have his life rights in a creative sense. At this current point, it was unknown whether Meech knew that Cohen's was a federal informant or not, but the affidavit for the arrest of Dion Cuffy Gatling states that she had become an informant in 2009 and helped take down a different kingpin in Atlanta, and she even got to keep some of the money that was seized in the operation. CS1 in the affidavit allegedly refers to Tammy Cohen's, and it states, when CS1 became a DEA informant, CS1, aka Tammy Cohen's, and had been a long-time friend and associate of Demetrius Flannery. It also states CS1 held Flannery's power of attorney and life rights with creative control. On page 12, it basically says that CS1, aka Tammy Collins, only knew Dion Gatling and a truck shipping connect named Fidel Suarez because Big Meech had made the connection for her and introduced her to them on the phone. It was due to CS1's relationship with Flannery that CS1 came in contact with both Fidel Suarez and Dion Gatling. In September of 2011, Flannery requested CS1's help coordinating a delivery of a load of cocaine to be controlled by Suarez, who at that point was already in contact with CS1. Flannery confirmed that he and Suarez were friends and that they had met in the county jail in Michigan. Sometime in 2012, Suarez asked CS1 if they knew someone who might want to buy pills. According to CS1, they were in a car with Agent Cromer, this DEA agent that she was actually having an affair with. During this narcotic-related conversation with Suarez, Agent Cromer overheard the call and signaled CS1 to say yes. CS1 was later contacted by an agent in California regarding that. Defendant Gatling first contacted CS1 to see how Flannery was doing in jail. Based on discussions with both Gatling and Flannery, CS1 understood that Gatling and Flannery were friends. Initially, CS1's relationship with Gatling was more of a business relationship, and communications centered more around Flannery's life rights. However, at some point, Flannery asked CS1 to connect Gatling and Suarez, and the relationship between CS1, Gatling, and Suarez turned into a drug deal at this point. So at this point, bro doesn't know that she's a fed off rip. However, further into the affidavit, you will see there's some sketchiness going on. The affidavit then goes into Meech's involvement. CS1 denied that Flannery had any involvement in any drug trafficking activities between Suarez and Gatling, and denied that CS1 ever informed DEA agents that Flannery was so involved. CS1 also denied that she ever informed DEA agents that Flannery directed her to contact Gatling and Suarez. However, this aspect of her testimony was not credible, and the DEA had a couple different reasons why. In March of 2015, she reviewed the electronic docket in the case and saw information containing defendant Gatling's suppression motion. She believed that that would allow people familiar with the circumstances to determine her identity. Upon reviewing the court filings in this case, she contacted her DEA agent boss, testified at the hearing, and expressed concern that motions filed in this case and the government's response to those motions contained specific detailed information that she feared would reveal her identity or make it much easier for someone to figure out who they were. She went to go to Louisiana to try to go talk to him. Although it looks that she didn't speak with Flannery in Louisiana on March 6th of that year, her hearing testimony suggests that when she did finally speak with Flannery, he advised to her, and this is very important, he said he didn't want want his name caught up in any of this mess. Basically, she was trying to save his ass, and we aren't really sure if Meech was responsible for this or if he wanted his homies just to get some bread and somehow got caught up with the federal agent. At the same time, this Tammy lady begins having an affair with the DEA agent that we talked about earlier, Agent Cromer, which is honestly crazy. Bro had a family and everything. It all goes downhill from this point. Cuffy thinks that Tammy is cool because Meech basically glazed her and gave her a cosign and made her seem like a regular person when she was a fed. He ends up calling her and she reroutes the call to add the agent she was sleeping with in it, and he was able to hear details of a supposed shipment that was coming into St. Louis from Atlanta, and they both get arrested. The thing that is the question is whether or not Meech knew that she was a federal informant. It seems later in the case he said, "Don't have my name attached to any of this," but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But I mean, I guess there's some type of knowledge that he knew that it wasn't going to end up good. But did he know that she was an informant? That's the one thing that's kind of missing out. We don't know this, but 50 Cent is saying that he did, and he's about to interview her today, like in this time period, and see what exactly went down with everything explained, which is honestly going to be crazy, and it could shift a whole culture, zeitgeist, whatever we had going on in the early 2000s, you know, basically revering this dude as the trap lord, keeping it solid. Bro even dropped a little snippet thing that he said he did not tell it all and kept it 100. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's his word versus the lady who was a DEA informant's word. And we're going to see soon what exactly went down, but it's definitely pretty questionable. But man, let me know in the comments what y'all think. Do you think that he knew that she was a DEA informant? Or do you think that this was all just manipulation and she used him to try to find other people for her own monetary gain? Let me know what y'all think, man. Real say shit. You already know what's going on. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.